This episode of Grade 43 is brought to you by On Trajectory. See where your money is taking you at ontrajectory.com. Do the math.
5 kids.
3 dogs, 2 cats, 1.5 fish,
Do teenagers count?
and a lizard.
13 guitars.
17 years of formal education.
19, but who's counting?
2 middle-aged men
2 middle-aged
on
men.
a podcast.
Get off my lawn.
And a whole bunch of misguided ideas. It works out to something like Grade 43.
43rd
Get off my lawn.
grade.
All right, so what do we want our start to be?
It's going to be us being giddy and excited about this conversation that we're about to have.
That's our dude, you found it. That's our cold open.
That's what I was
So
saying.
we're
That's
open.
our goal.
Okay.
That's what we're doing.
Did we do
That's
this
what
4
I
times
said.
already tonight?
Yes.
Okay, whatever.
I was
All right.
I was like, what do we need to say? We need to say Phil McKnight, Phil McKnight, Phil McKnight, because I
Yeah,
can't
well.
believe it.
All right, sorry. I will rein in my excitement. I will shut up. But folks, we had an amazing opportunity that the Kalimar lined up for us to have an amazing interview. So without further ado, Kalimar is going to set us up.
Are we doing this? No, but like
No, this is
we
dress
did
rehearsal.
it. I can't believe it. This was an amazing interview, wasn't it? Like this was so much fun.
Yeah, like I mean, tonight is the night that I drank the beer to celebrate what we did in our lunch break a few days ago.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot more time talking about Warrant, but like I just want to we should just totally dive right in. So
Yeah, let's jump in, because today we have a very special guest. In our eyes, a celebrity, really. Phil has one of the most popular YouTube guitar channels called Know Your Gear. He has 330,000 subscribers in a podcast. And if you've listened to pretty much any of our episodes, you've heard us mention him for sure.
Once or twice.
Yeah, because we always talk about strings. And how do we know how to tie strings on a guitar? By watching Phil McKnight's video. So, his honesty and desire to share real information with fans comes through anytime you see or hear him talk. And when Phil agreed to be interviewed, Brian and I were both over the moon with excitement. So, of course, without any further ado, we'll welcome to the show the man, the legend, Phil McKnight, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, well, that becomes the issue with these guys that are professionals is that they become YouTube famous, whatever that means, and then that is the part that what do they call it? They call it. There's actually a term for this, by the way. It's called cherry pie guy. You ever heard that? No, it's serious. It's like a big deal.
Yeah, I know.
It's
That's the first thing I think about is when I hear cherry pie is Warrant.
Well, that's who it's named after. Janie
okay.
Lane from Warrant when he killed himself. The theory is that Janie Lane has always been very public about the fact that when they wrote the second album, this is all true story, 100%. So he wrote the second album and the record company is like, no, we want a Love in the Elevator. We want a hit theme song. We want a rock anthem. You're playing arenas now. You need a rock anthem. And so this Janie Lane story is he went and wrote Cherry Pie. That's the last track that they wrote on the album. He wrote it in 15 minutes and he sent it to the record label and they were like, this is great. This is going to be the album cover now.
Exactly
this
what
is the
they
title
wanted.
of the album. They had him in cherry pie eating contests. I guess I didn't even know about this. Like after the shows, they would have Janie Lane is, this is why it's important, or this why the cherry pie guy story is important is, he killed himself in a hotel room. And recently, as recent as like weeks before that, he had mentioned that his whole life was ruined being the cherry pie guy, that he never got taken seriously again. Warrant was a joke. And it was all because that is their biggest song. And to him, it's their worst song. And they never charted higher and they never did bigger. And that album, nothing ever happened better than that. And that's the worst thing he ever wrote. And so the theory, the cherry pie guy theory is that whenever you create anything, art, anything artistic or product or anything, be aware that you don't control what will be you're known for and what will be the hit. and you might become cherry pie guy.
Yeah,
that's
because somebody else may love it, right? And you're stuck with
and
it.
somebody may love it, and it literally will torture you your whole life as. And so that term is used a lot in the for a lot of things, but like for instance on YouTube, it's funny because some guys that do things outside of YouTube get on YouTube, become huge on YouTube, and then that's their cherry pie guy.
Right.
They're literally
identity.
tortured by it
Yep.
all the time because they're like they want to be known for anything else.
That's amazing. This is like we haven't even started talking, and I feel like that was just the best.
Are we allowed to run that? That's awesome.
Can I?
Yeah, of course.
I wonder if those Swedish guys have that with that song that starts with that whistling. It's not a guitar song. It's like
Whistling.
whatever. It's like a funny pop song that somehow became their hugest song, and they thought it was going to be tongue in cheek.
Well, it happens. Well, I mean, think of this. It happens to everybody. I mean, I remember it happened to Extreme. The band Extreme did More Than Words, and then More Than Words became huge. And
my wife and I still make jokes about that song to this day.
Yeah, well, think about this. It became people's wedding songs, and then literally people bought the album and were like, what the hell's the rest of this album? Like they just had no concept.
Totally.
Of what they were buying.
I had that happen to me. I'm a big Harry Connick Jr. fan.
Right.
And you will actually appreciate this. Both of you will, I think. So he's always been known as like the Frank Sinatra crooner guy. And I was here in DC. There's this beautiful place called Wolf Trap. And he had just released his album, which was completely the antithesis of any of this. But I don't think anyone that went to the show heard his most recent album at the time. And so it was like all these senior citizens and they're all there happy. He came out with an Eddie Van Halen, like Music Man guitar wailing, doing this rock stuff. And within 10 minutes, half of the people left the concert.
Oh my God.
And the following year I came back and he said, I remember all of you left, but don't worry, this year we're going to do big band stuff again, 'cause
That's what I saw to throw my weird thing into the story. I saw like a video that the Final Countdown by Europe was actually never meant to be like a song. It was meant to be their hype music before the concert started, but then people liked it too much. And so it just evolved into
that's funny.
Yeah, it becomes a big deal, right? It happens all the time. Yeah, I did a Sweetwater. They interviewed me in 2020. Mitch Gallagher did. They grabbed me at the NAMM show. I was really shocked. I was like, "Oh, you want to interview me?" I thought it was like, I don't know. I thought they were doing some B-roll for something. You know what I mean? I was like, "All right, I'll be in some kind of montage." The NAMM show. And then, by the way, there's this gear guy that has. And no, instead they did a whole video, and he was asking me, and that's the piece of advice he asked. What Mitch asked me was, you could give one piece of advice to people doing a YouTube channel, and my piece of advice was, basically, I really compress the cherry pie guy story down to just watch out what you do because or actually better yet, do what you love and only do what you love, because the second you probably do something else, that will be what you'll be famous for, and you'll be doing that all the time.
Yep.
And I learned that. Luckily, I was lucky, very fortunate in my personality, that when my channel started popping or whatever it does, when all of a sudden there's more than your mom's watching. I started talking to YouTube channels. That's the first thing I did. Anybody who had more experience than me, I wanted to know what they thought or what they did. Yeah. I knew that there was a road that they could probably, give you some guidance on. Man, I thought they were going to be like, well, make sure your camera angle is always this, so it doesn't look up your nose or whatever they're going to say. And instead, no, it was all cautionary tales of, don't go for the clickbait thing and be radical unless you want to do that, because that will take off. And then you'll be making that content all the time, and it'll just be dread.
Then you're not your own master anymore.
And the worst part about it is the game is you don't know what anything can make. You can make. I have videos that have paid more than I ever thought they would pay out yearly. 5 years later, they're still paying out huge dividends. Where I'm like, wow, that's impressive. And I have videos that I've worked 3 days on, and they didn't even make half of what somebody making minimum wage makes. It's still a year later, they still haven't made anything close, or they're negative. Those are my favorite ones. Right. Where you're like, let's see, I paid for this, and then I made the video, and I'm in the hole $300. And that's not a big deal, $300. But you're like, I worked for 2 days.
Yeah,
paid
the opportunity cost. What else could you have been
plus
doing?
Yeah, 3 days of work.
So the problem is if you don't love what you do, your brain will probably automatically go, stop doing that content, anything that costs you money, right?
Yep.
Only go for what gets, some kind of click or something. And then you're back to that. You hate doing it.
Yep.
So,
back to your old job.
Yeah.
Wow. So Phil, just for like the purpose of recording and stuff.
Sure.
Did you already mention that? Did Brian already tell you we have like the ghetto account for Zoom? We only have 40 minutes. Okay.
It won't. Have you ever done this before with 3 people on Zoom with the ghetto account?
Sometimes it.
Sometimes we get the
sometimes it
counter,
lets you go
sometimes we
longer.
don't.
Yeah.
Sometimes it lets you
care.
keep going.
Yeah.
So we just want to disclose that.
That's okay.
We're still on our shoestring budget, probably
That's
for
right.
a long time.
We still have mom listening. And
Mom. We pretty much have mom listening.
But that does segue like one of my like first kind of like, and it's not really a general question or a specific question. It's more of like a general question, right? So I mean, you got a shop, a channel, a podcast, Patreons, you play music, people, including your fans, send you stuff, right?
Yeah.
The bigwigs at PRS and Fishman call you up, and you give them new perspectives on their product line and like their mission and stuff like that. That's pretty awesome. Like, I mean, so like, can you tell us more about like how you got there? And is your internet job like your job now?
So what's weird to me, and I always say this, what's weird to me is nothing's changed for me. YouTube changed nothing in how anything works for me, because like I have tons of stories. Like I have a story where I won't tell it, but I'm just giving you a reference. Where I have a story like where Paul Reed Smith, they called my wife actually, and they're like, hey, if we fly you and Phil out next Wednesday, will you come to PRS factory and we'll take you to dinner? And Paul took us to dinner and gave us a personal tour of the factory. And we spent the day picking my brain. That was about 4 years before I had a YouTube channel.
Wow.
And what was funny was I was there actually as part of a group, and the group was funny to me because in the group was basically 5 people, including me, business owners, so to speak. And the other guys were huge business owners, doing massive numbers with PRS. But I was there because what PRS had figured out, a ton of companies had started figuring out, and that's what I learned, is that a lot of people in this industry, in every industry, but this industry too, will only give opinions that suit them or help them. No one's really trying to help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, it's like, if PRS is like, how do we sell more guitars? A dealer will go, well, give me a lower cost. Give me more margin and I'll sell you more guitars. You know what I mean? And how does that help PRS? PRS is like, well, great. But then we make the same, right? We move more product. We actually, so it's different. I came from a different mindset immediately in this industry. When Fender decided to switch from AS400, which is their system, to Oracle, they didn't really know what they were doing. And I was like, oh, I'm Oracle certified, right? And I like, by the way, I'm 20 minutes from you and I'm a dealer for you. So why don't we beta test it here, with my store and how the portal system works. Wow. So I just did that stuff. And so that's where those relationships came from over and over again. And then YouTube, all it did, which was really crazy for me, which I never predicted in a million years, all these relationships I had made over the years, when I was doing YouTube and I got views, it's the opposite for the audience. The audience looks at it as like the YouTube channel comes and it like, I don't know, because then now I got views, I'm validated. But to the companies I was already working with for years, the YouTube channel validated all their instincts, which is like, man, you know what? You know what I mean? Like we knew it was really crazy to have him come out and just start talking. But now it makes sense because he must have a tap into the market. And that's essentially all it is with the channel is the same logic. Because ultimately, all I care about is a good piece of gear. You know what I mean? A good guitar, a good pedal. So if I can help the company, I'll do it. I don't have an agenda per se. So when I started doing the YouTube videos, it just really became video of what I was already talking about and doing all the time. And I find it to this day, it still works the same way. I don't know if that really answers the question, but that's
that wasn't really a pointed question, but I think you hit the nail on the head because like no one could ever accuse you of being a hype person, right? And you're just kind of like unvarnished, straight ahead, like truth about what's going on with a given piece of gear, and I think that's super appealing for folks to hear.
Well, and I can do it, which I think is weird to me. It's still weird to me. It's natural for me to give a critique without being a douchebag. You know what I mean? even what I call kid gloves, which is constantly what I'm doing, I've upset tons of people.
Yeah.
I mean, you just, you could say it as nice as you can, but if they don't want to hear it, it's not a nice thing to hear. And some people aren't soliciting your advice. I try not to give unsolicited advice to anyone, but heaven help if you ask me, what do you think? Because
you're going to find out.
Yeah, you're going to find out. And like I said, I told this story once before. The first NAMM I ever went to, I got all my customers to give me questions, and I wrote them down on this tablet. And I walked around the NAMM show, and I went to booth, asking owners of companies the questions my customers had, and then wrote the answers down and take them back to my customers.
That's pretty good.
So that was on Facebook, right?
No, that was just me and a tablet. There's no, I didn't even hear. That was 2004. I never even heard of Facebook.
Oh, wow.
That was like just people like you were meeting.
I was just doing it. Yeah. And then literally your customer would come back the next week after you came back to NAMM, and I'd get out the tablet and I go, well, this is what they said. What I learned about that was some owners had great advice and great information for customers. Some owners were jerks and could care less. They were, in fact, I could tell you there were some owners that literally got, I don't want to say violent, but aggressive with me in my questioning. Like, you realize real fast, like they were, in fact, I can tell you what happened, what always caused the problem. Here I am asking a question for a customer about a product, and they're like, they're not there to do that. They want to sell you their product.
Right.
So
they're there for the
only thing
push.
they want to see from you with your buyer's badge is how many you want, not let's talk about your products and your company. And it was like actually it was interviewing before YouTube, right? Before YouTube was, YouTube was around, obviously came around in 2006, but it wasn't part of the mainstream for us for many years. It just became instinctive to me to want to share information as much as I could, and mostly also interact with people. That was probably the bigger thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward now, the number one question I get all the time is, do you do YouTube full time? And the answer, I'm very cautionary because I want to say it, but I don't want to be misleading. I do YouTube technically full time. What I mean technically full time is, it's full time hours.
Right.
But whether YouTube does well or doesn't do well, I don't trust it. It's all over the place. What I can tell you is to be, I've never been, what do you call it? What do they call it? Viral or huge, right? Tyler Larson, Rick Beato, right? Or Marty Schwartz, the big channels, million subscribers. I don't know how to do that. So I'm sure, and funny, I should ask one of them, but I'm sure their answer is going to suck because it's
they're going to give you the list of things.
Hire a production crew, and
it's not even that. It's insane amount of hours, and then a more insane amount of luck, I'm sure. But the reality to it is, what I've learned on this platform is you're constantly got to be pivoting constantly. Anytime you make any money, so far on YouTube, anytime I've made any kind of money, and that's why I hate YouTube videos. My only pet peeve, man. I hate you, and I never use that word if you notice, but I hate YouTube videos on how you make money on YouTube. I've watched so many of them, and they're all if they are accurate, they're accurate for a moment. And if they had any responsibility, they would take them off as soon as they're not relevant, because everything changes all the time how you make money, how much you can make of it, because everyone's constantly adjusting. As soon as you make money, all of a sudden, they'll lower the amount they pay you, whether that, right? They find a way to where what used to pay you this now pays you less. And so to the point where you find that, and I find this to be true on the platform, to make the same, you're always working more to make the same year after year. And don't get me wrong, and this is why I said I don't want to be misleading. You can make lots of money, and you can make good money very quickly without a ton of subscribers. Because like I said, I think subscribers are this confusing thing. I think subscribers are constantly confused by what they are. I know that because they always put messages on every YouTube video. I'm unsubscribing. I always feel like, okay, if that's a way to say like I should take notice that you don't like the content anymore, I make sense. But if you're trying to say financially it has some kind of thing, it has nothing to do with me. How many subscribers I have or don't have is irrelevant. What actually pays anything on YouTube is you just get lucky and you get a viral video, and you can have that whether you have 5 subscribers or 5 million subscribers. And if you're lucky to get 1 or 2 of those, it's no different than the record business or the movie business. You get a couple hits and they just pay dividends for a long time. The system just keeps rolling them.
Yeah. And I imagine, and you mentioned like pivoting, right? So, and stuff happens all the time. Like, now there's TikTok, right? I mean, where did TikTok come from? And everyone's got a TikTok. So if you're creating content, like that's another new avenue that you might have to look into just to keep people happy. I don't even know if TikTok like is a remunerative thing in any way.
Yeah, I don't do anything. Isn't that funny? I don't do anything besides YouTube. I'm not a fan of the short platforms. The success of them, to me, I think it's entertainment-based systems. There's companies that approach you constantly, like, hey, we noticed you're not on TikTok or Instagram that much. And they're like, we can help you with that. And 1 minute, because they know the channel, because that's what they do. They're here to make money, figuring out. And they'll go, 1 minute information videos are very, very popular. And I'm like, yeah, but what can you convey in a minute that isn't going to create as much problems as it fixes? That's the problem. I already get nervous when I make a 5-minute or 15-minute video.
Right. Did you include enough information, right? Yeah.
I mean, I almost get to the point, I won't do it, but I got to the point where sometimes I'm like, man, this video needs like 25 disclaimers, because if you make a 30-minute video or an hour video on a certain subject, most of the time they won't engage. People will tell you they will, but that's not how it works. And so when you want to do information videos, you want to make sure the person gets the whole piece of information, because, the saying half cocked, right? You don't want somebody out there half cocked. You don't want somebody out there with half the information. But it's also too, those platforms are different. I'm very happy with the YouTube platform. You know what I mean? The way it works. I like the way they ethically do a lot of stuff. I know people are always complaining about them and their censorship abilities and stuff. And that's another subject, obviously. But as a YouTube content creator, there's a lot of stuff in YouTube behind the scenes that people don't know, the viewers don't know, that is very good, in my opinion, for mental health of the creators.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to reveal what?
No, yeah, it's filtering. There's tons of filtering going on. I can make it to where I don't have to deal with anybody who's a horrible person. You know what I mean? Which is a very powerful thing.
Yeah, the internet without the internet, right?
Community.
Yeah, think of this. I can create content on YouTube if I wish, and it can get extreme. You know what I mean? So that's the way, I don't do the extreme filtering, but you can do extreme filtering. I can make it to where anyone who's pretty much trying to say something harmful or hateful or do anything, I don't see it. I won't even know it exists. And I can make it to where you guys see it or don't see it. It's up to the creator. YouTube came up with a system that's I always thought was beautiful, different than Facebook and Instagram. Facebook and Instagram will let you block people. So you got a person that's rude or, actually, I don't like to say that. I don't even think about that. It's about being disturbing, right? They disturb the community. And it doesn't have to be what you think. To me, it's just someone who's constantly trying to bring outside content into your content. For instance, if you went to a news media channel and somebody was like, Strats don't stay in tune, you'd be like, what the hell is what? And that's how I feel sometimes when I'm doing a guitar video and I'm like, here's a Strat versus a Les Paul. And somebody's like, politicians. And then they go on this whole tirade. And I'm like, well, what does that have to do with anything that we're talking about today? So what's funny about YouTube is different than the Facebook guys and the Twitter guys and all the other guys, where you can block someone, you can ghost people out. In other words, they don't know they can't be seen. They have no idea.
So they're just screaming into the void.
They're screaming into the void. You just basically click on somebody and then their comments, as far as they see things, they exist.
They think everything's normal.
And the reason YouTube does that, like I said, very smart system, is because YouTube shares videos based on how well the community or your viewership interacts with them. So you can imagine if somebody starts putting, let's just say somebody puts a hate speech, just keep it extreme, right? Something hate speech. Well, you delete the comment. Okay. Well, here's what sucks. You delete the comment, that actually hurts your video because that interaction helps grow the video, right? But YouTube allows you to just go, okay, well, no one will be able to see this except for the person who creates it, and let them just keep screaming into the void. And I'll still get credit for creating interaction.
Yeah, you got the eyeballs on it, but we don't have to give any oxygen
and
to the
in fact, people. You can tell my favorite thing to do if you're really, really savvy and really smart, my favorite thing to watch, and now that I say it, you'll see it, or you've seen it, and now you're going to have an aha moment, is you go to, and because people who don't, it's just like the Howard Stern thing. People who don't like you watch you more intently than people who like you. Click on some video, make sure you're first, right? Some video, the channel you like, when the video first pops, go right into the comment section and look immediately at how many comments are posted, the number count, and then count comments. And I would say 60% of the time, you're going to see like 4 comments and you look and you can only find 3. It's because they count. They just not seen. There's
the system took care of them.
I don't know where he went now, but I had a guy for years. He was the first comment in every video. And it was just basically, he talked some crazy stuff. And so, but no one ever saw him. And he did it for years because I can go and if I want to, I can unlock it, so to speak, and look at it. And he would post like every video for years. This went on, not knowing, I guess, that he was haloed out. You'd think at some point he realized nobody's responding to his comment, or the only thing you can
have friends.
Yeah. Well, you got to get your friend to then click it and then, look for it. Some people just assume because they can't see it. It got shuffled weird. And that's just one thing YouTube does. That's, I think, is smart. They let you filter. For instance, when I do see comments, what I do now is you filter out. I can only see subscribers. So I look at subscribers, members, all that stuff. I look at all comments later, but only after I've read all the members' comments and, the subscribers' comments. So like I said, it's a platform, although it has its extremes. This stuff's important because the best piece of advice I got didn't come from a YouTuber when it came to YouTube. It came from a radio DJ, and he called it van people. I love this saying. He said in the radio business, there's a thing called a van person. So a van person, radio stations, they send the van out. Bob, something's going to be on corner of 5th and Main giving out T-shirts. Yeah, on location. And he told me this story. He was a national DJ, and he was saying that the CEOs and the VPs of the company came out and they hung out at one of the vans one day. And they came back to the radio station and they go, I talked to all the viewers, listeners, and they want us to have more giveaways. So less talk, less banter, do more giveaways. And they did giveaways, and basically the numbers tanked. And the lesson learned was people who go to the van want a free T-shirt. They don't listen to the station.
They're just here for the giveaway. Cool. Let's if we can switch topics a little bit to gear. I think Kalimar wants to get in because you've got a wealth of experience with gear. He's got a little gear shame that he recently ran into that we talked about a little bit in our last episode.
Yeah, so I think we talked about it in the last episode. Sorry, I'm still recovering from all the information that Phil just shared, and I have a lot of thoughts. You have a video about your 10 biggest regrets. I watched it yesterday. I loved it. This is different. This is the worst trade that's ever happened. So I don't know what happened to me this weekend. I don't know what came over me. I felt like I was maybe in Vegas drunk or something, but it was none of those things. I'm here at home with my family and kids, but I had a telly up for sale on Facebook. Someone reached out and said, oh, they lowballed me or whatever. I'm like, well, do you want to trade something? And he's like, yeah, I have this Line 6 Spider 3 amp here. You want that? And I said, okay, maybe with money too, a little bit or something, right? Not really knowing what I was getting into. I looked at it a little bit, but I didn't take my time, and I was like, oh, this is going to be good for some reason. And then the guy shows up with this giant amp. I don't even want an amp. I don't need an amp. I have everything I need here. I like my guitars. I don't even know why I was selling my other guitar. I don't know what happened, Phil. I feel like I was in some fog. I think it's because Brian was out of town on vacation. So 2 questions. Do you have a horrible trade story that you made for whatever reason? And then how do you recover? I'm thinking of something, I'm going to call it the Guitar Center Walk of Shame, where I'm going to take that in for a trade-in or something and get something else. But do you have advice for dealing with that nonsense?
Usually I have so many mess up stories where I've messed up. Trades are really not one I don't think of. I'm sure there's got to be one, but I do. But here's what it is. It's the art of trade and the art of trading is really as simple as the trade up rule. You should always be trading up. And some people like to trade for needs. I need a bass amp to play with this band. So I'm going to trade my Strat for this bass amp. Okay. Because I need a bass amp and I don't need a Strat. It's not a wrong theory, right? And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But I'll tell you, you'll win more if not all the time, using the trade up logic. The thing I'm trading towards has more value than the thing I have. So for instance, if you trade 10 pedals that don't have a lot of value, but you get one American Strat, that's trading up, because that especially in long-term value. Usually trading for me is about never about what I need. It's about what's easier. For instance, like I have an amp, it's a pain in the ass to ship. Well, somebody on Craigslist, like I traded Dr. Z amp for a Gibson Les Paul, right? And then they're like value, but it wasn't about I needed a Les Paul. It was a Les Paul's easier to ship. It has a bigger audience that would want to buy it than a Dr. Z amp. It's more specialized. Same thing with guitars. You sometimes, if you're going to lose money because you bought an exotic guitar, that's usually where things go awry for a lot of players. You buy a Nags or some kind of brand
Hey, you like the Nags? No, I'm
yeah,
kidding.
of course. Yeah. Well, you know what it is, but I mean, there's lots of guitars that are cool, but they're just, again, your audience is smaller.
Yeah.
You can somehow you can trade sometimes for a more
common. Oh my God.
yeah,
You
more
actually
common.
just nailed my other problem, Phil. You have no idea. I have an offset telly from 2016, those that are like a Jag caster,
Right. Yeah.
and exotic guitar. This dude on Facebook wants to trade it with me for like a Jazz Master, like a
Right.
made in Japan Jazz Master,
Right.
about the same value. And I'm like, that's exactly that. Like, mine's an exotic guitar. No one wants it. And
Right.
that guitar is much more like popular. So you actually
Yes.
just solved my other problem.
And you have to do the trade ups
Wow.
this scenario. So equal trade's not usually what you're shooting for. It's not like you're trying to mess over people. It's not.
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But it's a mentality of like if you're always trying to trade up in value a
Then
little
you're gonna,
bit.
You're going to bring home a puppy you like, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Even if you pay a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, of course. And like I said, I just learned this over the years doing it. You know what I mean? And it works well the most time. But like I said, if just always stay in that mindset of the trade up. You know what I mean? You're
So
trading.
what do I
up
do
in
with my
value.
clunker then? Guitar Center Walk of Shame? That I don't think anyone's going to want.
Put it out at the curb. Start a 311 cover band.
Right.
It's tough. Like I said, amps are tough. You might have to trade again. Hey, you know what? Think about this. You could use that amp to hone your trading skills. Put it on Craigslist and try to see what's the downside. You don't want it. So everything's a trade up from that thing because you don't want it. So that's what your goal is, to figure out what can you get that you actually want. And especially what's great about inexpensive amps now, especially because they're big and nobody wants them. The goal should be to get if you have a $200 amp, try to get a $200 pedal, right? Something that's, more universally easy to ship. It's, again, pedals tend to keep going up in value where amps go down in value, right? Right. Imagine if you bought a $200 Spider amp in 2010, or you bought a $200 boutique pedal in 2010, what the difference right now is in those two products and
Totally.
uses for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey there, fellow guitar and gear fans. If you've listened to us this far, you probably have some piece of gear on your mind. Maybe it's a fantastic vintage mic preamp. Maybe it's Kalimar's offset telly. Sadly, his Spider amp is now sold. Or maybe it's a magical boutique pedal. Whatever it is you have your eye on, you're probably trying to get an understanding of your finances. Can I afford this? How will I afford this? How will I explain and justify this? For small finances or for big picture items like when will I be able to retire, there is no better tool than On Trajectory to get a clear picture of where you're going and where you can go. Take this from a guy who's been a back-of-the-napkin guy for most of his life. I used to believe in my own hackneyed logic. Now I believe On Trajectory. On Trajectory changes everything. No guesswork, no sleepless nights, no buyer's remorse for anything. On Trajectory is an easy-to-use, high-fidelity financial planning tool that maps your income, investments, and expenses in a friendly graphical display. On Trajectory captures dozens of data points so that you understand how your decisions affect your finances, now, 2 months from now, or years later when your kid starts applying to colleges. On Trajectory takes your guesses and turns them into educated, fact-filled, and data-driven scenarios. Got a family? You can add spouses and dependents, create savings plans, goals, and run simulations that tell you exactly what the guitar and gear habit is doing to you financially. Onboarding is simple and intuitive if you're a pro or an absolute noob. You can sign up for free at ontrajectory.com, and from there you'll see your success score, fine-tune your projections, and chart your real progress over time. You can explore impacts, track your performance, and test all of your assumptions. Answer the big questions that impact your financial plan. What is my child's college education going to do to me? How much do I really have saved, and how will it stack up in the future? How much longer should I work? Just how long can I sustain my gear habit? So get moving, go to ontrajectory.com to sign up for free and see where your money is taking you. Thank you to On Trajectory for being a sponsor of Grade 43. So that's an interesting point. So what do you make of, Kalimar and I were talking about this when we were workshopping questions. So pedals are like insane now, it seems, right? And I feel like when we were growing up, and I feel like we're all like the same age, like you had a few options for pedals, right? You could go get a Rat, or you could go get a, whatever, Tube Screamer. And you had that, and it was pretty straightforward because there were zero options for, real good, easy guitar modeling and stuff like that. But guitar modeling, I feel like is, you can go pick up a Spark for a couple $100. You can get software that does it. You can get all these things. And then now there's this rise of the boutique pedals. Is that just because like electronics are easy to do, or is it all fetishism? What do you make of that? Because like until I met Kalimar, I was not aware, or we've known each other forever, but until like we started talking guitars again, like I'm like, pedals? Like, are you got to be kidding me? But they're like amazing and so numerous and sometimes incredibly costly, right? It's very odd.
I think, and I believe 100%, I believe this. I think YouTube has caused the pedal craze. The pedal craze is a perfect storm. It happens in basically right in the big recession. That's when it started. Most of those companies, if you look at JHS and a lot of those pedals, they started in the recession. Brian Wamper, that's when they start. Yeah. They're not from the 80s or the 90s. They happened in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when all that. And that stuff saved a lot of stores because people weren't buying stuff. The recession was bumming everybody out. Dudes aren't buying $1,000 American Strats, but they walk in a store. And my favorite quote I ever got from anybody was a friend of mine who said, you know what the best thing about a boutique pedal is? I walk in a store, I don't care how expensive they are, I can afford any of them. You know what I mean? He's like, there is no other boutique item that you can walk in a store and afford anything. Like
that's the Starbucks effect. Have you heard that about Starbucks? Like it's the treat that everyone, it's the luxury that anyone can afford. So you pay $5 for a fancy coffee.
And then the second part of that, which is a great, by the way, because I agree with the Starbucks thing 100%. What's great about that with the pedals thing is that there's something that happened. The thing with the pedal thing that was really interesting was that there was a guitar person that didn't exist before the pedal boom. They didn't exist. Here's how I know that. I want you to think back to all your guitar days since the day you started guitar, okay? All the people you've ever met play guitar, even rock stars, okay? Everyone had, in theory, this very balanced amount of product. In other words, 3 guitars, 1 amp, 5 pedals, okay? 10 guitars, 1 amp, 20 pedals, right? 50 guitars, 5 amps, 25 pedals, right? So it hit me one day watching YouTube videos. All of a sudden, every channel on YouTube that's representing us, because that's what it was, right? That's what drew you to it immediately. It was unlike Guitar World, unlike everything in the past, right? Where it was rock stars, Eddie's telling you what, why he uses this, or some guy who's apparently the greatest, the editor of some magazine who we're supposed to listen to is telling us stuff. All of a sudden you're like, hey, that guy's like got what I got. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're just like, oh, okay. So
barrier to entry is much lower for everybody, right?
Yeah. And so all of a sudden you're like, okay, this makes sense. Here's what's funny about this. So you're looking at guitar players. We didn't even think about it, which is funny to me. They'll have like 300 pedals all of a sudden. Like all of a sudden, oh yeah, everyone has 300 pedals, like just walls of pedals.
Pedal board of the day, right? On Instagram. Pedal board of the
day,
it's like
pedals.
Monster.
And you're like, it didn't occur to us all because we're all just watching it. And then one day it just hit me as an epiphany. I was like, wait a minute. Here's what's funny about this. We used to not do this. Why are we doing this? All of a sudden, guys have 4 guitars, but 150 pedals.
Well, like, it's remember Steve Vai, his album, that Eventide harmonics, whatever, rack unit, thousands of dollars. Oh, I want to sound like that. Now I can buy that for $500, $400. And Phil, Brian and I always call it like, now I can afford the guac at the burrito place, right? That's like our thing. And it's like, I want that thing I couldn't have when I was 15. Like I want it.
And the obtainable part of it is a huge factor, right? But also keep in mind, there's definitely a correlation between musicians and addictive personalities. First of all, just practicing an addictive personality. Think about what it takes. And I don't want to pick on musicians. Athletes have this problem too. Anybody who can literally do something over and over again for the concept of, not like, think of this, not for the fact of efficiency. It takes almost a crazy mind to go, I'm going to keep doing this thing over and over again until I get it right, till I get it perfect. You can see addictive personalities and guitar players going to the extreme when you just analyze someone playing something that somebody else played. It's so crazy. In other words, think about how obsessed people get with accurately playing something that obviously, right, to the point where somebody's like, that's not the E, he plays it there, he plays the other E, and then
they'll do research and go, no, it's not in this position, it's in this position.
No, it's worse. It's the original artist having to relearn the song to play it exactly. That Brad Carlton said he had to do this for his own guitar solos. People are like, well, that's not the same Kid Charlemagne solo that you did on the album. It's like, are you people out of your mind?
Well, it's because of that personality that is, again, it's addictive, it's hyper-focused, and it's meticulous. And so what happens is that can bleed into any kind of thing. And of course, pedal addictions and all kinds of addictions, it can be that way too, where you got to have different pedals and stuff. I even laughed. I think if you guys remember when I first started my channel, I had pedals, like I had the wall and I had pedals, amps, and guitars. And I did that because that's what everybody had. So I was like, all right, I'll just do that. That makes sense. This is my office. There was nothing in my office when I started. So I was like, all right, I don't know what I put in behind me. I don't know if I just want a blank wall. I don't know. Do you want that? I don't know. So I was like, oh, we should put some guitars. And I'm like, oh, we should put some pedals because, people like pedals. I didn't know this. Obviously, figured out real fast. Obviously, if you create a YouTube channel, I always tell everybody, if you get a YouTube channel, period, you'll get pedals. That's what comes first. The first thing ever sent to me by a company was a pedal, F pedals. Yeah. And I remember, like, because I was so naive, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe they sent me a $39 pedal. This is amazing. Like, I was like, this is amazing.
You've made it.
What's funny is really, if you think about, YouTubers will soon have horror stories. I'm sure that it will be like, they got a free pedal and they did a video and that company made $1 million. I already have that story. I have a company that sent me a cake. Okay. This is an actually crazy story. I had a company, and it's one of the only companies that has my physical address. The doorbell rang one day and there was a chef. I wasn't there. My wife answered the door. There was a chef at my door. And she says, whatever she is, she's some expensive bakery in town. And she's like, I normally do wedding cakes and stuff, but this company hired me and told me they wanted me to bake you this cake and bring it to you personally. And my wife's like, okay. So she's rushing in her head, like, who, like what one of our relatives or friends sending us a cake and why? And so she's like, okay. So she talks to the lady, the chef or baker, whatever you want to call it. Shuts the door and she goes, oh, we got a cake. And I go, we got a cake. And she opens the card and she goes, I don't recognize what this is. And so we open the cake and it says, thanks a million. And it's a video I did, a pedal. They sold $1 million worth of pedals off that video. And
all they sent you was a cake?
They sent me a cake. Hey, you know what's funny? That's the story that, some people go, oh my God, that must have sucked. I'm like, are you kidding? We were so happy.
Really good cake, right?
I was so happy because at that point, it had probably already been 1.5 years, 2 years. Every time I did a video, I would beg a company for some kind of metric or analytic or something. Give me a barometer. I had no idea what was going on. I'd do a video and I'm like, was that good? The companies act like they were irritated by you, and in fact, still to this day, some are. Like you would do a video, like I would do a video, buy a pedal, do a video, send it to a company and go, hey, I bought your pedal. I did a video and it got like 150,000 views. That's cool, right? No response. Like they would never respond. Nobody would. And if they did, it was always like, thanks, we're glad you like the pedal or the guitar or whatever it is. And so you'd be sitting there going, oh, okay. And all you're trying to figure out is, what's the value of this to anyone? Are people just watching it? And then I'll tell you what did it was when the affiliate link systems came out. That's what changed the whole world. Because once all of a sudden there was a link and companies were giving you data, what was sold. I mean, the channels, I can take it right now, off affiliate links, the channel sold tens of millions of dollars worth of gear just off the links. And that's direct, which means there's probably way more. Well, no, probably there is way more purchases not off those links. Mm-hmm. So you look at it and you go, this is crazy what these channels are generating in revenue, all channels at all levels. And like I said, well, the days of apparently, just 4 years ago, the days where a channel would make a video and make a company $1 million, those are almost all gone now. You know what I mean? They still happen, but I mean, no one will send you a free $40 pedal and expect $1 million worth of sales.
So let me ask you this. So it sounds like, I mean, it comes across in your videos. You love what you're doing. Is it fair to say that like this transition to full-time YouTube allows you to do more of what you actually really like, which is, I think, like you get to play with guitar gear, which is awesome.
You get to know your gear.
You get to know your gear, and you get a community. Like we talk about this in our last episode. It's the community. It's like the engagement with people and being able to share. And this is like the best way you have found to do that. Is that what keeps it going for you?
Absolutely. What keeps it going for me is the fact that I've been looking for this. Like we kind of talked about this off air for a second. I told you I would go to the NAMM show because the NAMM show is like, you're supposed to be your people, like Comic-Con. Yeah. And what you realized is that when you would talk to certain musicians, like I said, some are wired, they like gear, they like talking about guitars. You know what I mean? I guess I liken this to athletes. I'm sure if you're a sports fan and you meet one of your heroes, not superheroes, but heroes in sports, they may not want to talk. They want to talk about their Lamborghini.
Yeah, they say never meet your heroes, right?
They're like, I mean, and I don't mean that in a pretentious way. I'm just saying that's what they're into. They got a collection of Lamborghinis, and you're like, hey, I like that you use this shoe, or I like that you
tell me about your day job.
No, it's the last thing they right, exactly. That's why I do this. I don't want to talk about my day job.
Yeah. And so what happens is all of a sudden you just couldn't find, I guess, your people, your clan, your group of people who are interested in the things you're talking about. I love talking about music, history of music, and then the gear in that music, and then gear in general. And what's great is then I used to think like that. If I could find those people, it'd be great. And then I realized, like, you get greedy. I'm greedy now. So not only do I do I want to talk to people who are into guitars and music, but now because the internet's so vast and there's so ways to be specific, I'm really interested in my particular kind of community, which is like the more polite. Like it's not fun when somebody's so angry all the time about something. It's not that I don't like that personality. It's just I'm like, it
gets to be a drag, right?
Yeah, it's nice to talk about like, hey, I played a tube screamer that was $99 and it was pretty good, and I played the $10 one, and somebody go, I like it when we can have a conversation about it, and not somebody go, well, that's because somebody's trying to screw you out of $90. It's all a thing to destroy us.
I mean,
and you're like,
it's because you're busy and you don't want to waste your energy with all that other nonsense. Like, that's just nonsense. You're busy. We don't want to deal with that stuff.
What it is I think I don't want to be angry from the thing I love. Right. If it's making you angry, I'm like, you're probably doing it wrong. But when it comes to like making content, I'll tell you the thing I learned is this. It's about now I just really lean into two things. Either I want to do it and it won't get views, and I do that all the time, or the community wants me to do it and it'll get views. So I lean into that. And I try to stay the hell away from what the companies want, even though they all seem to have an opinion, the strongest opinion.
Right. Well, at least with the users, you get the engagement and you can talk to people and like a back
absolutely.
And forth.
Well, and also it's not even that. I don't need to. Think about this. Look at us. We never met, but we're talking, right? It's because we all come from the same, like I said, it's same kind of cloth, the same likes, same interest. Company talks to me. This is the problem. They're the only ones that are different in this equation. You could like a Axe FX unit and I could like a vintage pedal board, but we're still going to come across this. We're still going to be on the same plane of talking and things. Once somebody's biggest interest is in selling something, like what they want you to do is sell their product. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or beat the competition, right?
Yeah. The dynamic of it changes. I have this problem all the time because what you want is a perfect world, which is a very hard thing to get. You want companies to send you product so that way you don't have to buy it because it gets expensive, right?
Yep.
I mean, you get to a certain point at the size of channel I have now, I can pretty much buy anything and review it, but I would never make anything ever. It would just be literally, I would have to create a charity out of it because it would just, the churn just eats up cash so fast through the little incidentals, or go back to trying selling the product for premium. You know what I mean? Try to review it and then sell it for premium, which is not something I'm interested in. But the companies, what you learn is, luckily what happens is if I can hook them once, if I can get them to do a video with us and see how the audience reacts to it, I find that I can't get rid of them, which is good. Like they keep coming back because they see it. At first, it scares the hell out of them. You know what I mean? It scares them. This idea that you're, rogue. They don't know what you're going to say. What is he going to focus on? And it happens in a way people don't understand. I recently did a video, I'll say recent in the last year, so I don't be specific of the company. And my video was the weird one. Definitely. If I can watch the 9 other videos I've created. Mine was the weird one in the idea that I thought of it, the product way different than apparently everybody else. I thought it sounded, this is the person intended for this use, which is a very scary thing for a company because they're like, and all of a sudden you got this rogue YouTuber and he's like, what is it? And
you're going outside their market.
Yeah, their marketing people have their persona and you did not pick it.
It did well. It did very well. The video did well for them. And then what's nice now is they've come back and they're like, okay, let's do another one. And now you can see it's a little less of the reins. They're like, whatever you want to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. Whatever you want to do.
Well, you helped a company even with an overseas guitar company, and they were overpriced. Oh, yeah. And then you helped spec out the
oh yeah, that's right,
the hardware on it and change the pricing, and it seemed to work way better for them. Way
better. Well, the point of that was funny was I did this all the time. For instance, actually, there's a more recent company. What happened was they sent me a product. I did a video. I sent it to my patron members and members. They bought them all up. Right? It's probably a dozen. Okay. So I send the email to the company and I say, look, you're out of stock. And I'm supposed to put this video out on Thursday. You're out of stock. And they're like, yeah, but we're going to make more. And I'm like, but you understand, like the comment section is going to be like, thanks, Phil. There's none to buy.
Yeah. I want this in my cart now.
Yeah. Where's the energy of the video, the excitement? Why get people excited and be like, you can't have it? I'm like, that doesn't sound fun. And then what's going to happen is the 10 guys who bought one last week, they're going to put them on Reverb for 20% over retail. And they go, okay. So they came back to me, it's a very small, mid-sized company. They came back to me and they're like, hey, here's the problem. How many do you think the video is going to sell? And I go, I don't know, 5 or 500. I don't know. You know what I mean? That's the sad part. I can't give you that analytic. I don't know, because it's not like you just say, hey, here's a product and then people just buy it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's something
guaranteed
inspired.
Sales, that doesn't exist. Yeah.
And I said, so here's where it got really interesting. I said, but here's what you should do. Take my video. I'll give you permission. Send it to your dealers. Tell them this is the date it's coming out and how many do they want to order and have in stock. So they did that, and they ordered 100 pedals, right? The video sold 150. They got 150 orders, I think, in the first 24 hours. And you could see it. Actually, it's funny. You can see it after about 100 orders. You can see the comments like, "Oh, they're out of stock already," right? Which only took a couple hours after the video was up.
Yeah, but then that's perfect. That's perfect.
But here's what's funny about this. What's funny about this was the company immediately came back to me and said, that was a really different experience than we've had with other channels. They go, the other channels, they just make the video and toss it out. They're like, we never had anybody think about,
their business,
how we all this stuff. And I said, well, what's funny about it is, to me, is it's because you think I'm working for you, but I'm actually working for the audience. I don't care if you don't like the video. I care the audience is pissed at me for having a video.
For telling you about something they couldn't have.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I'm paying attention to. What is the audience going to get out of this? You know what I mean? If it's informational, fine, they get information. But if it's just to tell them that there's a great product they can buy that they can't buy, well, why make that video at all?
Yeah. Why make yourself the bad guy for the company?
I go, it's that's how the system has to work. It has to be the audience is the boss and you're constantly listening to them for feedback. And funny is, this is what I thought was going to happen. It doesn't happen the way I hoped, which is I thought was going to happen if you could get the audience, the companies would have to listen. Mm-hmm. But I miscalculated. And here's what I learned the hard way. Companies have a way around it. Here's the way around it. I can make a video and, well, let me put it this way. I can critique a company in a way and you think like, oh, they're going to have to listen to the audience. The audience thinks a certain way. But really what I forgot is there's so many YouTube channels. What they can do is just pay 10 other YouTube channels to say the opposite.
Oh, no.
And you could see it all the time. It happens all the time. I never knew it was happening until a YouTube channel, which happened to be a friend of mine, luckily was very kind and emailed me and said, hey, this company basically told me they got blasted by you. And, and they want me to make a video saying this stuff's good.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, and then
YouTube turf wars.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? You're like, and it was a weird technique. I never thought about it before. It never occurred to me. I'm like, oh, right. They don't have to listen to my audience. They can just manipulate another audience.
Yeah, the same way they got the 8 influencers doing the great video. Yeah. Now it's just like attack back on Phil. Oh my goodness. Wow.
But back to the Shiji thing and that thing about him changing his thing. That was even harder than I even applied in the video. In the video, what was really tough was not only was I explaining to him, Dave, the owner, that this is how it's got to go. He didn't like I said, he didn't go, okay. He went basically like, no. And then what happened was 2 big YouTube channels. He basically got 2 big YouTube channels to do a video for him. And they didn't sell any guitars. And then he came to me and said, okay.
Turns out you were right.
And what got his attention was, he probably paid one of those channels like $2,000 to make the video. And he sold like 1 guitar, which made probably $300-400, and so he's in the hole, which is not how YouTube works. I mean, it's almost impossible for them not to break even on those payouts. You know what I mean?
Wow. Wow.
And so he came back and he goes, okay, you might be right on this. I'm like, and here's what's funny about this. All I was thinking is what you guys think when I buy this. That's the part about getting gear that I hate. I've said this before. Company sends you gear. It's the best way to get it on the channel. But the one thing you have trouble with, I do, is I call it the rapture, the pain of the pocketbook. I don't know how to explain that. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, Phil, is it worth $900? I don't know. They didn't charge me for it. So it's worth that. It's worth getting
You didn't have to save up for it. You didn't have to trade up for it.
Yeah. And what's worse is it actually works backwards. I'm going to give you guys like a thought, since you guys are doing your own podcast now. Here's a thought for you. Sometimes what the audience doesn't realize is I paid way more than the audience for the guitar. Way, way more. Here, let me give you an example. So if a company sends me a product, right? But how do you convey this to the audience? This is the problem. Company sends me a $300 pedal. I do a video of it and somebody says, Phil, would you pay $300 for it? I'm like, I don't know. I worked 2 full days for it. And I wouldn't work for $300 for 2 full days when I make $75 an hour repairing people's guitars. So I'm going to say, yeah, apparently I will pay way more than $300 for it. Because
trade your time.
And so, and the only tough part about that, why you can't come across that way, is because there's a really anomaly that's not true. I get paid on the video, but I don't know what the payout will be.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's $30 and sometimes it's $3,000, sometimes $300. Maybe I will get paid for it and then it won't be, but I do notice all the time, that's one of the things that's hard to factor in. Like because sometimes when companies reach out to me and I'll tell you the worst one for me is apps. That's why I hate apps. Every time a company reaches out apps, it's 2 to 3 days of work.
Right.
It's the most work you'll ever do.
Right.
It's not like it interacts with anything else in the world, right?
Well, you have to.
The editing, video editing, and
you have to. You have to obviously educate yourself on the app. Then there's a lot of editing. Then there's a lot of work. Just like you said, making sure it's there. And almost every time, for me at least, it is equated to tens of hours of labor of just interacting with the company with all the problems you keep coming across.
Wow. And
app companies are the only companies I've ever seen do this ever, which is every time you tell them there's a problem, they go, yeah, we know that.
Right.
And you're like,
that's right. That's in the next sprint.
How do
we'll fix that.
So you want a video where I basically tell people like, here's the problem.
I work in software. I'm 100% guilty.
Yep.
I understand.
Co-signed
that.
by Kalimar.
Yep.
We got to turn into pumpkins here pretty shortly. So to get back to our speaking of day jobs,
this is killing me.
I want to wrap on this one, but Kalimar, stick around for this one. So one of the things I love the channel for is like the gear know-how. Forget the transistors and something, but just simply like basic things. So one of the things we've jokingly talked about strings just about every episode of this podcast. We refer to your videos for the different ways to change strings and how to do little things and maybe how to make your own little guitar tools like a string puller to get out of the back of a trim or something like that. So what is the one thing that you would recommend a guitarist know how to do to their guitar other than change the string? What's the easiest thing that I think I'm almost good at changing strings, playing guitar for decades, and I buckled down on changing strings. I can do it pretty quickly now. So what's the next thing that should be on the learning list?
So restring your guitars first, obviously. And then the next thing is to do a basic setup, making adjustments to the neck. That is the most important thing, learning that skill set. Because it's something that's very easy to do, and it's mostly based in fear, not knowledge.
Absolutely. I am afraid of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And so it's really about, that's why, like I said, I used to do, when Glary first reached out to me, they were one of those companies. I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, I don't want to talk about a Glary guitar. But then I was like, no, this is great. If some guy buys a $60 Glary guitar and just jacks it all up, that's the best thing. That pays a dividend. You can't pay $60 to get, you could pay $60 for an online course on how to do a setup, or you could buy a Glary for $60 and just jack with that guitar until it's right. Yep. And same with fretwork. The next thing I'm going to tell everybody is everybody's got to learn to take care of their fret sprouting issues.
Wow. I just did both. I got a free Ibanez Geo that has the drop D string. You know the one I'm talking about? Yeah. And I put Guitar Fetish pickups in it so I can swap them out and noodle with that and put a new wiring harness. And I just signed up for a guitar maintenance course.
Because it is a thing that that I talk about too. It's going to get more and more expensive, and that's because that's the evolution of all this stuff. The evolution of everything that we've seen in the world is that manufacturing is becoming the cheap part. Getting the product is becoming the cheap part. Even with inflation, all this stuff, that's the cheap part. The maintenance is going to be the expense. And if you look at it, think how, like I said,
skilled labor.
Well, think about this. I use Sears as an analogy, but there's so many better ones out there. Just the Plex systems that exist. The system is becoming, the system of business is becoming selling someone the back end maintenance on something. Here's the product. Now pay for the maintenance. Right?
Service.
Yeah. It's becoming, everybody's figuring out that's where the money is, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't take long for that business model to hit the guitar communities as hard as it's hit the rest of the other business models, which is, sure, you can buy a Harley Benton for $200, but it's $500 to fix it.
Exactly. Try living in DC, then it's like $1,000 to fix it where I live.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. It becomes the skill set you're going to have to teach yourself, because everyone's learning that. The car industry is learning that. Look how fast the car industry is, like, they're trying to get away from warranties and stuff. They want to get they want you to basically buy their car and then pay for the services. It's the service business, and the guitar industry will be no exception to it. It already is, I think, getting that way. People don't realize the Plek machines. This is the best story ever. Most people don't know this. When Plek came out, the idea was you pay $100,000 for this thing, and it doesn't do it faster. It just does it accurate and the same over and over again. What Plek figured out very, very quickly, the company, was there's no growth in that. Gibson buys 2, Fender didn't buy any. You know what I mean? G&L bought 1, right? Sam Ash bought 1 for the Hollywood store. So Plex quickly switched their system to now you have to pay basically like $20,000 a year for the service contract.
It's like licensing it.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. So you need their software, and you need to be able to hook up, and because it connects to them, I guess it's in Italy or whatever.
Wow.
And you may not see it. You may not seen this happen because you didn't know this back end on it. But all of a sudden, if you notice, like, everyone went from, hey, we Plek guitars, to you need to Plek a guitar. You need to have us Plek your guitar. We're going to Plek your guitar for you. We're going to Plek, right?
Mm-hmm. Like Sweetwater. Yep.
And the reason is because now they got to pay for that yearly service. They got to make money on something that's a cost.
There's overhead. Yep.
Right.
For sure.
And that's the whole point of this, is how long before everybody figures out, Sweetwater. I talk about Sweetwater and all the time, if you guys know, because again, their business model is so different than what the industry's had before it. I'm going to go there. I think I go there in June. And one of the things we're going to be talking about is, of course, their 55-point inspection. But I had this cool meeting with them. This is kind of cool. You get some, like, a little behind the scenes secret thing up front. One of the things I hit them with was, I said, look, you do these inspections, you take pictures of guitars. What does that cost you per guitar? Could you give me that information? I want to talk about this in a video when I go there. And they were very cool. They got back to me and they're like, it's 37. I can't remember the exact number. It's like $37.30. per guitar. So every time you buy a Sweetwater guitar, you got to figure they're losing. Well, not losing. They took $37 out of the profit section of that guitar to service it, just to take pictures, the time, right?
Yeah, it's part of their marketing, right? It's their marketing.
Part of their
costs.
marketing.
Totally.
But this is my point.
Customer.
What happens with that is the same business model. They do something to the point where all of a sudden, start noticing everybody else is starting to weigh the guitars now and take actual pictures of guitars and do basic setups, right?
Yep.
And then at some point, in theory, if it follows every other business model I've ever seen, they pass that cost on to us.
Oh, yeah.
That it stops becoming a free service and it becomes a service that you have to pay for. Oh, this is the premium of that. I'm not saying
you're
going to
want that.
Well,
if you try to opt out of it, they're going to be like, you're going to want that.
Sweetwater has that, right? They have the pro setup that they offer
of course.
on top of,
Right. And so, like I said, that's why that skill set's going to be important to guitar players to have, just basic setups, basic things, because of the fact that they're not going to make that, it's not going to be like, hey, we throw in a setup, or is it $50? I think it'll become $150, $200 to do a setup.
That's a long way towards a cheap guitar. That's half the value of like an inexpensive guitar.
And what's crazy about that, which is why I switched, I was always doing detailed videos of guitar reviews. And then what I started doing now is actually the whole, the code, the people don't realize this, the whole geeky section, geeky stuff idea. What that is archival. I wanted to basically create an environment where people could go back to the history of all the videos and look at specifically how each guitar was dissected.
Yep.
Right. And that's why they're time stamped, because here's why. I think over the years, it's not about a guitar. It's about over the years. I've been like I said, I'm like Chicken Little, right? Or whatever, the sky is falling. Here I am saying what I'm seeing over the years. And what I realize is, well, the reason I'm saying it is because I did see it. I'm paying attention to it. Yeah. What if I get the audience on the same page, which is, okay, let's take a look at all these guitars. And I bet you 10 years from now, 5 years from now, let's do 5 years now. 5 years now, I bet you the average guitar that I get and take a look at will be different than it is now. Just like it was different 5 years ago in the overall quality of what I see.
Oh, interesting.
Right? So how many guitars have fret sprout now versus 5 years ago? We'll have it from 5 years from now.
Wow.
How many guitars, you know what I mean? Yep. And here's the really interesting thing. So double whammy, not only will we be able to look back and figure that out, but also I'm hoping I might get the companies to pay attention to it as well.
If the customers notice, then hopefully they notice.
Yeah, because the scary part is
quality control for them. Force them into higher quality control. Hey, look at this 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. The question is it better? And here's what I love. This is the part I love. In fact, this is funny. This was this morning's conversation during coffee with my wife. I was talking about the video. I think it will come out today. The video that I think it depends on how the flow of it is done, but if not tomorrow. It's really cool guitar. It's carbon fiber. It's a really cool guitar. Yep. And it's priced really good. And there's a couple flaws with it. And I have 2 samples. So, new companies, smaller companies, I usually ask now for 2 samples. Okay. 2 different models to look at. And I love it. And this is what I tell my wife. I love it that everybody keeps saying to me like, oh, but they sent it to you, so they picked you a good one. And I always laugh going,
I want the representative sample. Yeah.
Well, I always think, I go, well, here's the double-edged sword on that. People almost frame that as almost like it's a conspiracy, like, you know what I mean? Like, why trust this video if the companies knew they were going to get the video? And I laugh going, you understand, I think the opposite. The company's screwed either way. Here's how they're screwed either way. Either they sent me something too good, which now you will demand that yours be as good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or they didn't check it that well, which seems to be the case on most of the guitars. And now you're pointing out the flaw.
Yep.
It's actually the downside seems to be always on the company, not on anybody else. I don't know why. But just to test, and again, secrets behind the scenes. No one knows this stuff, so I'll just share it with you guys. I think it's Friday. Today's Wednesday, right? Is it Friday?
Wednesday.
I got so sick of. I have so many comments. Like I said, I read the comments. I pay attention, right, and to the emails and stuff. I pay attention to everything. There's a general consensus that over the Kiesel guitars that I've reviewed, that because Kiesel knew it was going to me, they did a better job, right? So we're like, all right. So it'll be out next week. I haven't even seen it. I get it on Friday. I had a viewer buy he bought a $4,000 Kiesel. It's the most expensive Kiesel I think you can get. He bought it, had it shipped to him.
Wow, and he shipped it to
you. He didn't even open it. He shipped it straight to me. I get it on Friday. I'm gonna unbox it and go through it. It's
He's like a secret shopper for
It's a secret shopper Kiesel review.
That's amazing.
Did the viewer who was, and this is what's important, he bought this guitar based on my videos. So the argument is, am I screwing him, or did he get is he going to get the right guitar?
Yep,
right?
I think he will. I have a Carvin from like 1992. It's a wonderful guitar.
Yeah. So I go, I thought this is cool. I actually put this out to my, to the member group, the patrons and stuff. And I said, hey, anybody buying Kiesels or anything, and I was just asking around, what do you guys got going on? And then just so happened, one of my viewers like, yeah, I ended up buying the flagship one based on your reviews. I'm super excited. It's my first real expensive guitar. Wow. And I said, oh, and he's like, we started talking and he's like, I wonder, he goes, if we had it shipped to you, you could do a video of it. And I said, well, if you ship it to me, they'll know.
They're going to look it up and know.
They'll know. They'll know the address. They'll know it's me. I said, I have too good of a relationship with Brandon, the guy that works there. He knows. Yep. And I said, so sadly enough, you got to ship it straight to you, and then you'd have to ship it straight to me. And I go, and this is a lot of trust, right? And he's like, let's do it. He's like, let's do it.
That's awesome.
I'm like, all right.
And you're getting it on Friday?
Yeah, the tracking number shows it arrives on Friday. So
that's perfect.
Yeah,
that's perfect for us too, because we probably released this before that video comes out, so it'll be like,
oh yeah,
hey, check this out.
Well, that's why I thought it'd be fun to talk about it, because it's like I said, it will be fast, because obviously to accommodate him.
Well, he wants his guitar back.
Yeah, I'm doing a fast turnaround, right. So I'll come over the weekend, and then he ships back out on Monday to him.
Right.
Nice.
And I'm curious too. You know what I mean? It's I'm curious thing, because Kiesel is one of the few companies that I've dealt with that has an influencer like program. They're one of the only ones I know that does that. Mm-hmm. They actually have someone who deals with, if you're YouTube channel or something, they have somebody who deals with you. And so it gets a little problematic when people bring that up. Like, hey, yeah, but they knew it was you. And I'm like, yeah, right, I know they know it's me, because they also rush all your guitars.
Yeah.
They call it artist something. If you're an artist, you get a faster track line to get the guitar faster.
Yep.
Yeah.
Phil, I hate to. I can go on.
Yeah. Zoom's about to crush us again. This is awesome.
And our jobs are. I run a meeting right now, and I just walked over there and I typed up like, I'm going to be 5 minutes late, folks. I'll be back. I'm here.
It's all good. And our audience can't see us, but we're grinning ear to ear, man. You've been amazing. This is thanks so much for joining us on Grade 40.
Oh no, thanks for the invite. It was a lot of fun.
It was really a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah. See you on the internet.
Yeah. Thanks. See you. Bye, guys.
Take care.
It's hilarious that we told Phil that, hey, we have the ghetto Zoom account, right? We have 40 minutes. And he's like, whatever, guys, it's okay. Sometimes it runs over, you never know, but we'll just get on again. We went through 2 of those. He talked to us for 80 minutes. It was amazing.
And you'd think we'd learn, because we're staring at a fucking timer right now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. I don't know. I think Zoom is getting really strict with stuff. Maybe Zoom wants to sponsor us. I don't know. But Phil was like a wealth of knowledge. I took away so much. And, we did it a couple of days ago, so I've been like just digesting it even more. And it really helped me like find my direction. I don't know if any of that
Yeah, no, like I expected us to, well, I mean, here's the thing, like it just went, right? And it was an amazing, amazing ride and amazing talk with somebody, because I expected us to be like morally safer. We're going to ask the hard hitting question or whatever. And we were just like, hey, how's it going, man? Here's this guitar thing. And he was just off and running and had so many different beautiful tangents to go into, because he's just got such an awesome depth of an experience. And he's got an earnestness that you're like never going to be like, yep, he's just out there selling whatever. Like, no, I think you get a pretty honest read from anything that he says.
And before I forget, I just want to make sure that, because I don't think we mentioned it on the show, his show airs every Friday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Every Friday. Gear. Know Your Gear. It's a great show. It airs on YouTube and it's also like on all the podcast feeds available. It is a wealth of knowledge. I've listened to it many times. He answers questions from fans for over an hour. So like,
and
definitely
you see
check out
like
the
some
show.
literally amazing things. Like the interview that I referenced when we spoke to him was the guy who's like the COO of PRS,
Right.
and the guy from Fishman,
Yes.
who make the pickups for their acoustic guitars. Like
Yeah, he has a
they were hanging out talking with him, like we were hanging out talking with him, and these are guys,
Right.
and then they walked away. They were like, "What? Oh my God! Wow, we never thought about our guitars that way." So
Right.
yeah, it's amazing.
Right. He and he's a like the guy's a visionary too. At the end, he talked about like how his videos, he also sees them as having this historical value so that you can you can check
You
the
can know your
quality
gear,
of that
right?
same
Yeah.
guitar 5 years from now and go like, hey, the specs have changed. What happened to this guitar?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, wow, man, you really have a lot going on. He has so much
Yeah.
going on.
And I didn't, it just sounded like, just fan fawning. I didn't get to like say it and pay him like a compliment. To me, he's like the Alton Brown equivalent for like guitar stuff, because rather than just, assuming something which people believe to be true, and people can believe a lot of different images to be true in the world of guitars and pedals and boutique stuff. And, like, ooh, it's all very exciting, but it's all very just thesaurus and adjective based. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
No,
you get
his is
down to
very
it, but he's,
tangible,
he
right?
breaks it down and he gets the arthroscope out and he scopes
Yeah.
out your acoustic guitar, or he takes the meter and he reads how hot the pickups actually are, or, he breaks it down and he gives you an honest, the opinion of where stuff works and where it doesn't. So yeah, no, and it was changing. And, I think we both came away with, some good advice and some good takeaways from the whole
We
thing.
talked about my trade. I learned so
Yeah.
much about trading gear and like how to deal
So
with that.
in psychology, there's this concept of closure, right? And I feel like our audience is probably, you were kind of just wandering the woods and didn't know how you got into this, gear situation. I think they would probably want to know, like, what happened with your beloved little Spider?
Oh.
You resolved this situation, didn't you?
The Line 6. Yeah, I did, and hopefully Phil will forgive me. He said, hey, this is your opportunity to practice trading. And I was like, wow, that's like Mr. Miyagi. It was
Everyone
like a Mr.
gets to
Miyagi.
experiment in college, right?
Yeah. And I was like, that's cool. Except this amp is probably worth less than $100. So I don't think I can trade it for anything that's going to be of any use to me. So I sold it. I got $90 for it.
Cash?
I'm okay with that.
Did you get cash?
Cash. It was wild.
What's since happened to that cash?
Oh, it's nothing yet. I've been well, I did get strings for our next episode.
There you go. Because it all has to come back to strings.
Well, because why did I get strings? Because we talk about strings all the time. Obviously, we punted on our homework again, as you all realize after 2 hours of listening to us talk to Phil. But we punted on the homework. This is how it worked in real life for me and for Brian. I think since the deadline for homework got extended, we have now enhanced what we will be delivering. So now I've gone so far as to add additional string research around our homework, and hopefully our fans will appreciate the depth of our work.
We don't just touch a topic once and then let
No.
it go. Like we keep coming back to it over and over again. And
Yep.
so
Yep.
yeah,
So the homework
I took
was blues rock, right? The homework was
blues rock fills. We did a different fill, but I think a better fill than the blues rock fills. And
Right.
I got distracted because we talked to Phil during lunch, and I got this idea in my head of going out and getting a cadaver guitar, essentially, right? The $60 guitar that you didn't
Right.
care about,
Right.
Because I need to know how to set up a guitar, because I finally feel pretty good changing strings. I feel pretty good.
Good.
I might screw it up, but I could laugh at myself now. So that's like phase 2. So now it's like the setup thing. And, I won't lie. I tried to set up my bass and failed miserably and took it to a shop and paid $75. So I'm looking for like a $75 guitar. And
I signed up for a course.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
You're actually signed up, and whereas I'm just going to do good old trial and error.
And we might have him on the podcast. I already talked to him. He sounded really interested and open to that. So I'm excited about that. He's invited me. It just happened. It's an online course, but it happens to be local. and he's the guy that does setups on my
You're
guitar.
gonna take
and
grade 43 to school.
I'm gonna go to school, man. I'm gonna yeah, we're gonna maybe even film some stuff about my classical guitar. And I feel great about that because I signed up for it. And then Phil told us, like, yeah, you should learn how to work frets. That's gonna be the next thing.
That's
Like
right,
that's gonna
fret
get
sprout.
more expensive.
It's the
Fret.
silent killer that no one talks about is fret sprout. That's
Fret
for sure.
sprout.
Yeah.
There you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
So anyway, so we missed our homework again. So teachers adding more layers of difficulty and much more research to it, but it's okay. We're good with this. We're happy with this. We're actually going to drop and maybe have already dropped some teasers on social media about what might be going on. So you'll listen to this and then you guys are going to sit around for 2 weeks waiting to see what wonderful things we drop in your lap. So check us out on the Instagram at grade 43, on the Twitter at 43rd grade. You can email us at info@grade43.com. We're still waiting to hear Kalimar had pretty quick closure. Within a month, he got rid of that horrible spider amp that he had. No offense to anyone who loves their spider amp, but it was not the right move for him, and now he has closure. No. So we're still waiting to hear your horrible gear trade stories or anything like that. Believe me, we've all been there. I used to have
string stories.
I used to have a guitar that was checkered, like the floor of Johnny Rockets was checkered.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. You had a checkered guitar?
I had a checkered guitar.
This is like an episode. Okay. Yeah. All right. Wow. What an ending. But remember, stay off my lawn, kid.
That's right. And more importantly, know your gear. And thanks again to Phil for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Phil. Oh, my goodness. All right. Take care, everybody.
Awesome.
So I know you guys are looking at the countdown timer.
Yeah.
We'll see.